The boy should not have been standing inside the private elevator. At Shen Holdings. Even adults with silver access cards lowered their voices before approaching that row of black glass doors. Rain slid down the exterior glass, blurring the marble lobby into a world of pale light and steel. Yet the child had slipped through the hush with a paper bag hugged against his chest, one sleeve damp. His small face lifted toward the panel of buttons as if he were studying a puzzle rather than trespassing into the highest floor of a corporate empire. The elevator had almost closed when a hand stopped it. Shen Yao stood inside alone, dressed in a charcoal suit immaculately. The mirrored walls doubled his silhouette, turning him into several versions of the same unreachable man. Then he looked down and saw the child staring back at him. The child was perhaps 6, too thin beneath his neat blue jacket, too composed for someone caught in a forbidden place. He had dark eyes, straight brows, and a small mouth pressed with the restraint of someone used to being told not to cry. His features were arranged with a precision that made Shen Yao's fingers tighten around the folder in his hand, as if an old photograph had been cut apart and remade into something smaller, softer, and impossibly alive. The boy blinked. "Uncle, does this elevator go down?" Shen Yao did not answer. In 2 seconds, his mind rejected a dozen explanations and held on to none. Resemblance could be an accident. Memory could rot into illusion. But the child's left eye had the same faint crease at the outer corner. And, when he grew wary, his shoulders went still instead of shrinking. "Who let you in?" Shen Yao asked. His voice was not harsh. That made it worse. The boy glanced behind him, toward the lobby where receptionists whispered into headsets and a security guard turned too late. He held the paper bag tighter. A small thermos was inside, and the smell of plain rice porridge seeped through the paper. Absurdly warm in that expensive, scentless place. "I'm looking for my papa," the boy said. Something passed through Shen Yao's eyes and vanished before anyone could name it. "Name." The child hesitated, as if he had been taught that names were not always safe things to give. "Lin Che." Lin. The single syllable landed in Shen Yao's chest with the quiet force of a blade finding an old wound. Across the lobby, Lin Yu had just stepped out of the temporary conference room with translated contracts held against his ribs. He had been careful all morning, careful with the borrowed suit, careful with the suppressant patch below his collar, careful not to look at the portraits on the executive wall. He had taken the job because the agency promised it was only a subsidiary negotiation, and because the fee could cover Lin Che's winter medicine. Then he heard the receptionist say, "A child entered President Shen's elevator." The contract slipped half an inch in his arms. Lin Yu did not run at first. Running drew attention. That lesson had been beaten into him by 6 years of unpaid clinics, rented rooms, and creditors who remembered faces better than names. But when he saw the black glass doors held open, saw the small back inside, saw the man standing before that child as if the past had opened its mouth, his composure broke cleanly through the middle. "Cheshire." The boy turned at once. The caution on his face dissolved into relief so swift that it hurt to witness. "Papa." Lin Yu reached the elevator before security could. He did not step inside. Some old instinct stopped him at the threshold, where the metal groove divided public floor from private space, present life from the one he had buried. His fingers closed around Lin Che's shoulder with controlled gentleness. He kept his body between the child and Shen Yao, though the effort cost him all the color in his face. "Mr. Shen," Lin Yu said. Shen Yao looked at him. 6 years had altered Lin Yu in quiet, brutal ways. He was thinner than memory allowed, his hair shorter, his scent almost completely sealed beneath cheap suppressants, his suit sleeve slightly frayed at the cuff, yet his eyes were the same dark, still. Impossible to read when he wanted to survive. Shen Yao had once hated that silence. He had once believed it proved guilt. Now that silence stood before him holding a child with Shen Yao's face. Lin Yu, Shen Yao said. Around them, the lobby went carefully still. No one in Shen Holdings had heard that name spoken by their president before. But everyone understood the temperature of the air had changed. The security guard stopped 2 steps away. Suddenly aware that this was no longer a routine mistake, Lin Yu's hand tightened only once on Lin Che's shoulder. You've mistaken me for someone else. It was a bad lie. Both men knew it. Perhaps that was why it sounded less like deception than a boundary drawn with shaking hands. Lin Che looked up at his papa, then at Shen Yao, sensing adult danger without understanding its shape. The child did not cry. He watched, absorbing silence the way children of hardship learn to absorb weather. Shen Yao's gaze lowered to him again. How old is he? Lin Yu's throat moved. That has nothing to do with you. You entered my building, Shen Yao said. Your child entered my private elevator. It became my concern. My son got lost. I apologize for troubling you. Lin Yu's voice remained steady, but his palms were cold. He had imagined this moment in many forms, never with Lin Che standing between them. Small and warm and impossible to hide, the word son scraped against an old memory rain. The Shen residence gate. Lin Yu's white shirt soaked through, and evidence spread across Shen Yao's desk like a verdict. Transfer records, a leaked seal, a photograph outside a rival hotel. Betrayal had looked so complete that he had chosen not to hear a defense. He had told someone else to deliver the words, "Do not come back." Papa, Lin Che whispered, tugging lightly at Lin Yu's sleeve. Did I do something wrong? The question cut through the lobby more sharply than any accusation. Lin Yu bent at once, lowering himself to the child's height. The movement revealed the edge of a medical plaster beneath his collar, where the suppressant had irritated his skin red. Shen Yao saw it. So did no one else. No, Lin Yu said, touching Lin Che's hair. His voice changed when he spoke to the child. Softened by a tenderness he gave no adult permission to witness. You did nothing wrong. You were brave. But next time you wait where I told you. All right, Lin Che nodded, though his eyes flicked toward Shen Yao again. He seemed puzzled, almost offended by the familiarity of a stranger's face. Shen Yao stared back, and for the first time in years, the people who feared him saw him fail to know what expression to wear. The elevator doors tried to close. Shen Yao lifted one hand, and the censor caught it. Opening them again with a soft, mechanical sigh, Lin Yu stood, pulling Lin Che behind him. We'll leave now. Your meeting is not finished. Shen Yao said, I'm only a temporary interpreter. Someone else can complete it. You came under the name Yu Lin. The alias struck too close. Lin Yu's lashes lowered. It was a tiny movement, nearly invisible. But Shen Yao had once known how to read the smallest changes in this Omega's face. I use whatever name the agency registers, Lin Yu said. And the child? Lin Yu's expression cooled. Mr. Shen, even for you. This is inappropriate. The words created a faint ripple among the staff. No one spoke to Shen Yao that way in his own lobby. Yet Shen Yao did not reprimand him. He only studied the Omega before him, as if the years between them had become a locked document, and he had finally noticed the seal was false. From the entrance, another gust of rain-wet air swept in. Lin Che shivered. Lin Yu noticed instantly and adjusted the boy's collar, then took the paper bag from his arms. Shen Yao watched that hand, There was a thin scar across Lin Yu's knuckle. Not one, he remembered. "Where have you been?" he asked. Lin Yu looked up slowly. It was the wrong question. Too late. Too cold. Too entitled. Lin Yu's eyes did not redden, and his voice did not tremble. That was how Shen Yao understood he had touched something that no apology could easily reach. "Alive," Lin Yu said. "Mostly." For one brief second, Shen Yao's mask cracked. The word mostly entered him like a delayed verdict. He wanted to ask what that meant. Who had hurt him? Why he looked as if sleep had been a luxury measured in coins. But Shen Yao had always wanted too late and acted too absolutely. Lin Yu took Lin Che's hand. "Come." The child obeyed. But after 2 steps, he turned back. Shen Yao still stood inside the elevator, one hand against the door, the polished steel reflecting his face beside the child's smaller one. In that reflection, denial became almost grotesque. The same eyes, the same brow, the same quiet, defensive stillness. Even the same habit of pressing emotion into the jaw until nothing escaped. Lin Yu saw the reflection too. Fear moved through him so quickly it left no visible mark. He had spent 6 years protecting Lin Che from the Shen family's hunger, from lineage tests disguised as concern, from the kind of love that came with lawyers and locks. All of that effort now balanced on a reflection in an elevator wall. "Lin Yu," Shen Yao said again. This time, the name was quieter, not softer. Exactly. Shen Yao had forgotten how to be soft with him, but something in it had lost the old certainty. Lin Yu stopped without turning fully around. "Please don't call me that." "Then what should I call you?" "No one." The answer was so calm that it silenced even Shen Yao. "Lin Che." Too young to understand the wound, but old enough to feel it. Held his papa's hand with both of his. Shen Yao stepped out of the elevator. The movement caused 3 employees to lower their heads at once. Lin Yu's spine stiffened, but he did not retreat. Shen Yao stopped an arm's length away, close enough for Lin Yu to sense the controlled pressure of an alpha's pheromone behind expensive inhibitors. Not released, not threatening, but present like thunder behind clouds. "Thank you for stopping the elevator," Lin Yu said, formal enough to be cruel. "We won't trouble you again." He turned to leave. This time, Shen Yao did not stop the door. He stopped the person. "Wait." Lin Yu closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, all softness had been buried again. "Mr. Chen, my son is tired." Shen Yao's gaze remained fixed on Lin Che. The child stood half-hidden behind Lin Yu, clutching the paper bag. His small fingers curled into the wrinkled edge. He was afraid. Shen Yao realized. Not of the building, not of the guards, of being taken from the Omega in front of him. A pressure built beneath Shen Yao's ribs. Unfamiliar because it had no use for anger. Anger was clean. Anger gave orders. This was something else. Heavier and far less obedient. He looked at Lin Yu, at the body angled to shield the child, even from a man who had not yet moved. 6 years ago, Shen Yao had believed betrayal made a person ugly, yet the person before him looked only exhausted, cornered, and heartbreakingly brave. His voice dropped. "Whose child is he? Whose child is he?" The question did not echo through the lobby. It did something worse. It settled. Lin Yu felt Lin Che's fingers tighten around his own, small nails pressing through the thin fabric of his glove. The child did not understand the full weight of the sentence. But children who grew up watching adults calculate rent, medicine, and hunger learned to recognize danger before language gave it a shape. Lin Yu turned back slowly. For a moment, Shen Yao thought he would finally see something unguarded in those eyes panic. Anger. Perhaps the old hurt that had once made Lin Yu stand outside the Shen residence in the rain. But Lin Yu only looked at him with a calm so complete it seemed practiced in front of mirrors. Under street lamps. Beside hospital beds. "My child," Lin Yu said. "No one else's." The answer was clean. Too clean. It allowed no handhold. No flaw for Shen Yao to seize. Yet the child standing behind him was proof of something neither of them could smooth away with composure. Lin Che lowered his gaze. Not because he was guilty, but because the adults had begun speaking above him in that careful tone people used when love had become unsafe. Shen Yao's jaw shifted almost imperceptibly. "That wasn't what I asked." "It is the only answer you're entitled to." A quiet intake of breath came from the reception desk. Lin Yu heard it, but he did not look away from Shen Yao. In the past, he had lowered his head too many times in halls lined with the Shen family's portraits. He had bowed because he was young, because he was an Omega without a family powerful enough to protect him, because he once believed patience could be mistaken for dignity rather than weakness. He was no longer that person, or perhaps he was, but he had a child behind him now. Shen Yao's eyes moved to Lin Che again. "How old is he?" Lin Yu's voice cooled further. "6. When was he born? You have no right to question him." "I'm questioning you." "Then you should know I'm not obligated to answer." For several seconds, neither man moved. Rain continued to tap against the high glass walls, soft and persistent, like fingers searching for a way in. Lin Che stood so still his breathing became audible to Lin Yu. That small sound finally broke him away from the standoff. He turned, lowered himself, and adjusted the child's collar once more. "We're leaving now." Lin Yu. He did not stop this time. Security parted without orders. No one dared block the Omega who had just spoken to Shen Yao as if the president of Shen Holdings were no more than a door he had decided not to open. Lin Yu walked across the marble floor with Lin Che's hand in his. Each step measured. Each breath counted. Only when the revolving doors closed behind them and the rain-colored afternoon swallowed them did his knees threaten to fail. Lin Che looked up. "Papa, is that uncle angry?" Lin Yu opened the umbrella with a hand that trembled only once. "No." "Then why did he look like that?" "Because he recognized you. Because some bloodlines announce themselves before names can be hidden. Because the world I ran from has finally turned its head." Lin Yu swallowed all three answers. "He's someone from work. We won't see him again." The lie tasted old. It tasted exactly like survival. Inside the lobby, Shen Yao remained where Lin Yu had left him. The elevator doors closed behind his back, then opened again after failing to receive a destination. His assistant, Zhao Min, approached carefully from the side, holding a tablet against her chest. "President Shen," she said, "the board call begins in 9 minutes." Shen Yao did not look at her. "Cancel it." Zhao Min paused. Shen Yao had attended meetings with fever, with injuries. Even on the day his father's memorial tablets were moved into the ancestral hall, he did not cancel board calls because of lobby disturbances. "Yes, President Shen. And find out which agency sent today's interpreter." Zhao Min understood better than to ask which interpreter, immediately. Only after she left did Shen Yao look toward the entrance again. Rain blurred the street beyond the glass until the city looked half erased. 6 years. He had built 6 years upon the belief that Lin Yu had chosen betrayal over him. Money over loyalty. Escape over explanation. It had been easier to preserve anger than to examine the silence that came after. A child had now stepped into that silence wearing his face. By evening, the first file arrived on Shen Yao's desk. The agency record was thin. Name, Yu Lin. Age 28. Classification, Beta. temporary translator. Legal and commercial contracts. No permanent address listed. Only a correspondence box near the old Southern District. Payment history irregular. Medical insurance inactive. Shen Yao read the file once. Then again, his expression unchanged. Beta, he said. Zhao Min stood before the desk, careful not to interpret the word aloud. The agency confirmed the classification was self-declared. No formal verification was required for temporary assignments. Address. The correspondence box belongs to a convenience store. The staff said he collects mail every Friday evening. And the child? No registration under Lin Che connected to Yu Lin in the Central District database. We're checking older municipal records. Shen Yao closed the folder, quietly. Yes. He did not say why. He did not need to. Anything connected to Shen Yao became valuable the moment someone else learned he cared enough to investigate. In the Shen family, even curiosity could be turned into a weapon. After Zhao Min left, Shen Yao remained in the darkening office. The city below glittered with wet roads and red brake lights. On the desk beside the file lay a photograph pulled from the lobby security feed, Lin Che turning inside the elevator. Shen Yao looking down at him. It was a poor angle. Still, resemblance screamed through it. Shen Yao had no memory of wanting children. In the Shen family, heirs were not born so much as produced, evaluated, compared, and eventually used. He had grown up beneath the gaze of elders who measured pheromone strength the way investors measured stock value. A child with his blood would never simply be a child. Perhaps Lin Yu understood that better than anyone. The thought came without permission, and anger followed quickly. Because anger was safer than regret. If Lin Yu had carried his child, why run, why hide, why let him live 6 years without knowing? But under those questions lay another. Quieter one Shen Yao did not want to touch. Had Lin Yu tried to tell him? The next morning brought more records. Not official ones. Official records had been sealed, altered, or deliberately made unhelpful. What Zhao Min found came from the forgotten places of a city clinic receipts, rental complaints, charity subsidy lists, an old hospital payment ledger photographed by someone who still owed Shen Holdings a favor. Lin Yu had given birth in a district hospital under the name Yu Lin after arriving alone. Feverish, and without a guardian signature. The admission note mentioned severe exhaustion, malnutrition, and delayed prenatal care. The father's information had been left blank 3 days after delivery. The account showed partial payment made in cash and the remaining balance transferred to a debt collection office. Shen Yao read that line for a long time. Cash, partial payment, debt collection. In his memory, Lin Yu wore clean shirts and soft sweaters in the apartment Shen Yao had once arranged near the river. He spoke little but remembered everything which tea Shen Yao drank after late meetings, which lights gave him headaches, which silences meant he did not want to be touched. Shen Yao had mistaken that attentiveness for submission then. Later, when the accusation came, he twisted the same memories into evidence of calculation. Now the paper on his desk showed a different image, Lin Yu counting bills beside a hospital bed. An infant wrapped in cheap cloth. Rain against a window that did not close properly. Zhao Min placed another document down. There were multiple employment records afterward. Night cashier, warehouse sorter, freelance translator, document clerk. None lasted long enough for benefits. Why? Most likely child care. Zhao Min's voice was quiet. There are also 2 emergency visits for the child. Bronchial infections. One for Lin Yu himself. 4 years ago. Collapse from overwork. Shen Yao's hand stilled over the page. Collapse from overwork. The office became too silent. Outside. Employees moved through the executive floor with disciplined efficiency, unaware that the man behind the door was looking at a life that had continued without him, in rooms he would not have allowed his servants to sleep in. "Continue," he said. Zhao Min hesitated. "President Shen, there is one more thing. Someone else requested similar searches last night." Shen Yao looked up. "Not through official channels," she said. "A private inquiry. The trail is concealed. But one node touched a company tied to Shen Rukai. His uncle." The name entered the room with the faint smell of old blood. Shen Rukai had always smiled warmly at family gatherings. Always spoken of stability. Always placed a hand on Shen Yao's shoulder as if supporting the next generation while quietly measuring where to cut. 6 years ago, he had also been the first to present the evidence of Lin Yu's betrayal. "Lock down the child's information," Shen Yao said. "It may already be too late." The sentence should have made him angry. Instead, a coldness spread through him, clear and lethal, then make it difficult for them to know how late. That evening, Lin Yu did not go to the convenience store. He stood instead in the single-room apartment he had rented under another name, folding clothes into an old grey suitcase. The room smelled faintly of boiled rice, children's soap, and damp walls. A cartoon sticker Lin Che had won from a clinic nurse clung to the corner of the wardrobe. Beside the bed, a plastic basin caught water from a crack in the ceiling. Lin Che sat at the small table, writing numbers in a workbook. He had been quiet since the incident at Shen Holdings. Quiet in the careful way that meant he was trying not to trouble his papa. "Are we moving again?" he asked at last. Lin Yu's hands paused over a sweater. It was too small now, sleeves short at the wrist. But Lin Che liked it because the inside was soft, maybe for a little while. Because of the uncle, Lin Yu folded the sweater. Because Papa found better work somewhere else. Lin Che considered this. He had heard many versions of that sentence before. Better work often meant a smaller room, a longer bus ride, a new name to remember if strangers asked questions. Will the uncle come too? No. Does he know us? Lin Yu closed the suitcase too hard. The metal clasp snapped shut, startling both of them. He took a breath, walked over, and crouched beside the table. "No," he said. "He doesn't know us." Lin Che looked at him with Shen Yao's eyes. Too direct and too old for 6 years. But he looked sad. Lin Yu's throat tightened unexpectedly. It was absurd. Shen Yao had not looked sad. Shen Yao did not know how to look sad in a way anyone could afford to trust. He looked cold, suspicious, dangerous. If there had been anything else beneath it, Lin Yu had no right to see it. "Adults sometimes look strange when they're thinking," he said. "Do you hate him?" The question arrived softly. Children did that sometimes. Placed a hand unknowingly on the deepest wound and waited for truth, as if truth were a simple thing adults kept in their pockets. Lin Yu touched the edge of the workbook. "I don't hate him." It was not forgiveness. It was not tenderness. It was simply the shape of a wound after years had worn the sharpest edges down into something that ached instead of bled. Lin Che nodded, accepting this with solemnity. Then he returned to his numbers. And Lin Yu turned away before the child could see his eyes. They left after midnight. The rain had thinned into mist by then. Lin Yu carried one suitcase, Lin Che's backpack, and a cloth bag full of medicine. Lin Che held his stuffed rabbit under one arm and did not complain when they walked 3 blocks to avoid the main road. The bus station at the southern edge of the city glowed under flickering fluorescent lights. Its benches crowded with people escaping something: debt, work, grief, weather, themselves. Lin Yu bought 2 tickets to a coastal town whose name meant nothing to him except distance. Departure in 26 minutes. He chose seats near the back, away from the cameras. Sleep first, he told Lin Che, wrapping his scarf around the boy's neck. Lin Che leaned against him. Papa, will we come back? Lin Yu looked toward the glass doors of the station. Outside. Headlights passed through mist like pale knives. No. But even as he said it, he saw the car, black, unmarked, parked beneath the dead street lamp across from the entrance. Lin Yu's body knew before his mind allowed it. He lifted Lin Che into his arms despite the child's sleepy protest and turned toward the side exit. He had taken 3 steps when the automatic doors opened at the front of the station. No bodyguards entered first. No assistant. No noise. Only Shen Yao. He stood in the doorway with rain on the shoulders of his dark coat. His hair damp. His face unreadable beneath the harsh white lights. Travelers glanced at him and then away, recognizing authority even without knowing his name. His gaze found Lin Yu immediately, then dropped to the child held against his chest. Lin Yu stopped. For a moment, the bus station disappeared. There was only the distance between them 6 years long, filled with unsentences, forged documents, hospital debts, and a child who had learned not to ask for too much. Shen Yao walked toward them, slowly enough not to frighten Lin Che. That restraint frightened Lin Yu more than force would have. Move aside, Lin Yu said when he came close. Shen Yao looked at the suitcase in his hand. Where are you taking him? Away from you. The answer struck cleanly. Shen Yao absorbed it without flinching. If you run tonight, he said, voice low, others will find you before morning. Lin Yu's arms tightened around Lin Che. Is that a threat? No. Shen Yao's eyes were dark with something colder than anger and heavier than suspicion. It's the reason I'm here first. Lin Yu stared at him, and for the first time that night, fear showed. Not much. Only a faint break in his breathing. A small shift of his weight, as if preparing to flee anyway. But Shen Yao saw it. And because he saw it, something inside him bent under the pressure of a question he had avoided too long. Who taught you to fear me like this? Lin Che stirred against Lin Yu's shoulder. Half awake, he opened his eyes and saw Shen Yao. Instead of crying, he whispered, Papa. Lin Yu did not look away from Shen Yao. We're leaving. Shen Yao reached into his coat and placed something on the bench beside them. Not a contract. Not a custody order. Not the kind of document Lin Yu had expected from a Shen. It was a child's blue inhaler. The emergency brand Lin Che used during winter attacks. Lin Yu stared at it, startled into silence. You forgot this. Shen Yao said. Lin Yu had not forgotten. He had packed 2. This one was from the old clinic record. The exact brand discontinued 3 years ago. Shen Yao had found the past and brought back proof of how far he had searched. Lin Yu's face slowly emptied. Shen Yao looked at him and asked, more quietly than before, What happened to you after you left? Lin Yu almost laughed. The sound never reached his mouth. The boarding announcement crackled overhead. Passengers began to stand. The bus to the coast opened its doors with a tired hiss. Lin Yu picked up the inhaler with cold fingers, slipped it into the cloth bag, and held Lin Che closer. You happened, he said. You happened, Lin Yu said. For a long moment, Shen Yao did not move. The bus station announcement crackled again overhead, naming the coastal town in a voice made dull by static. Travelers brushed past with bags knocking against their knees, but the space between the 2 men remained untouched. Like a pane of glass no one dared break, Lin Che had gone fully still in Lin Yu's arms, his cheek pressed against his papa's shoulder, his eyes half open and watchful. Shen Yao accepted the sentence without defense. He had spent 6 years surrounded by people who explained, excused, negotiated, and knelt. Lin Yu had once been the only person who answered him without decorating the truth. Back then, Shen Yao had mistaken that plainness for insolence. Now it landed exactly where it was meant to. If I let you leave, Shen Yao said, you won't reach the next province. Lin Yu's mouth tightened. Then you admit someone is following us. Yes. From your family. Shen Yao did not answer quickly enough. That delay told Lin Yu more than any confession. He lowered Lin Che carefully until the child stood beside him, then drew him behind the suitcase. The gesture was small and useless against a man like Shen Yao. But Shen Yao saw the instinct in it shield first. Bargain later. Fear last. It was the posture of someone who had survived too long without expecting rescue. I can protect my son, Lin Yu said. You have been protecting him alone for 6 years. Shen Yao looked at the worn suitcase, the cloth medicine bag, the child's sleeve patched near the elbow. That doesn't mean you should have to do it tonight. The words should have sounded gentle. They did not. Shen Yao still spoke like a man accustomed to turning decisions into facts. Even concern, in his mouth, resembled an order that had learned to lower its voice. Lin Yu gave a short, quiet laugh. You still think protection is something you can announce? Shen Yao's eyes changed faintly. Then teach me the difference. The sentence disarmed them both. Lin Yu looked at him for the first time without preparing an immediate answer. Rain blurred the bus station windows behind Shen Yao, silvering the edges of his coat. 6 years ago, this man would never have asked such a thing. He would have decided, signed, dismissed, and walked away beneath the certainty of his own judgment. But asking was not repentance. Asking did not erase a locked gate. An unanswered call. A pregnancy carried through hunger and fever. Lin Yu bent to zip Lin Che's jacket. Chesh, we're not taking the bus. Lin Che glanced at Shen Yao. Are we going with him? No. Lin Yu picked up the suitcase. We're going somewhere safer. Shen Yao heard the distinction and did not correct it. The car waiting outside was not the black sedan Lin Yu had noticed, but another vehicle parked farther down beneath a leaking awning. No driver stepped out until Shen Yao gave a slight nod. The man who opened the door kept his eyes lowered and his scent sealed. Professionally invisible. Lin Yu hated that he noticed these details. Once. He had learned the habits of the Shen household in order to belong. Later, the same knowledge helped him avoid its reach. Lin Che climbed in first after Lin Yu checked the seat, the floor, the window lock, and the opposing door. Shen Yao watched without comment. Only when Lin Yu took the seat beside the child did Shen Yao sit across from them rather than next to them. The space he left was deliberate, wide enough for suspicion to breathe. The car moved through wet streets without heading toward the Shen residence. Lin Yu looked out the window. Where are you taking us? A property under my personal name, not registered to the family office. How comforting. It has independent security. That wasn't sarcasm because I doubted the locks. Shen Yao was silent. Lin Che, exhausted by fear and late hours, leaned against Lin Yu's side. The stuffed rabbit dangled from his hand. After a while, his eyes closed, but his fingers remained hooked into Lin Yu's sleeve even in sleep. Shen Yao watched that grip. It was not childish dependence alone. It was practice. The child held on as if things disappeared when he let go. Something moved behind Shen Yao's expression and was buried again. The villa stood in an older district near the lake, separated from the road by cypress trees and a black iron gate. It was too quiet. too tasteful, too far from the noise of ordinary life. Warm lights glowed from the windows, and rain gathered in shallow pools along the stone path. To Shen Yao, it was a secure location. To Lin Yu, it looked like every elegant place where someone could disappear without neighbors asking questions. A housekeeper greeted them at the door, but Shen Yao dismissed her with a glance before she could bow too deeply. Prepare the east guest room and a child's room next to it. No one enters without permission. Lin Yu heard the command and corrected him at once. One room. Shen Yao turned. Lin Yu lifted Lin Che, who had woken when the car stopped and now clung sleepily to his neck. He sleeps where I sleep. The housekeeper looked uncertain. Shen Yao did not. One room, he said. It should not have mattered. It did. Lin Yu followed the housekeeper upstairs, aware of Shen Yao walking behind them at a distance that was almost respectful. The guest room was larger than the entire apartment they had left behind. A pale rug swallowed their footsteps. The bed was wide, the curtains heavy, the bathroom stocked with sealed towels and glass bottles that had never known bargain shelves. Lin Che stared at everything without wonder, only calculation. As if trying to decide which corner would be safest if adults started arguing. "Can we lock the door?" he whispered. Lin Yu's heart clenched. Before he could answer, Shen Yao placed a key card on the table near the entrance. "Only you can open it from outside." Shen Yao said to Lin Yu, "From inside. The lock is manual." Lin Yu looked at the card. "And cameras. Hallways only. None inside. Listening devices. No." "Should I believe you?" "No." Shen Yao said, "Check." The simplicity of it made Lin Yu angrier than denial would have. He hated that Shen Yao had learned enough in one day to offer proof instead of demanding trust. He hated more that part of him recognized the restraint behind it. After Shen Yao left, Lin Yu checked everything. Door frame, vents, lamp bases, sockets, wardrobe hinges. He did it quietly, with Lin Che sitting on the bed and watching as if this were normal. Perhaps it was. Their life had taught the child that home was not where one rested. It was where one inspected exits. Only when Lin Yu found nothing did he let Lin Che wash and change. The child's pajamas were too thin for the room's winter draft. But before Lin Yu could unpack, a soft knock came from outside. He opened the door 2 inches. A tray sat on the floor. Rice porridge, steamed egg, warm milk, fever patches, and the specific children's cough syrup Lin Che could tolerate. Shen Yao stood several steps away, not close enough to force conversation. "The doctor will come in the morning," he said. "No doctor from the Shen family. Independent pediatrician. No blood tests." Shen Yao's gaze lowered briefly. "No blood tests." Lin Yu did not thank him. He picked up the tray and closed the door. Downstairs, Shen Yao stood in the dim corridor long after the latch clicked. Zhao Min's message arrived on his phone. Shen Rukai's people had asked questions in 2 district clinics and 1 archived municipal office. The search terms included Omega male, child born 6 years ago, possible alpha lineage. Shen Yao read it once, then deleted the message. In another part of the city, Shen Rukai sat beneath the warm gold lights of a private club, listening to a subordinate report over the phone. His smile remained mild, almost affectionate. "A child," he said. "How interesting." The subordinate spoke quickly. Shen Rukai stirred his tea, watching the surface tremble. 6 years ago, removing Lin Yu had been necessary, not personal. An Omega beloved by Shen Yao was inconvenient. A pregnant Omega was dangerous. A child with clean Shen blood was a future around which factions could gather. Power disliked loose ends, and the past had apparently grown a face. Do not touch them yet. Shen Rukai said, find out whether the old woman knows. If she doesn't, we shall be filial and inform her. He ended the call and looked toward the rain-dark window with a patient expression. The Shen family had never been destroyed by enemies. It fed on what its own people were willing to sacrifice. By dawn, Lin Che had a fever. It began as a cough swallowed into the pillow. Then a heat Lin Yu felt before fully waking. He sat up at once. All sleep gone. Lin Che's face was flushed, his lashes damp, his breathing shallow in the way that turned every winter into a threat. Lin Yu reached for the medicine bag, measured syrup with hands that knew fear too well, and whispered the child's name until Lin Che opened his eyes. The fever should have been manageable. It had been before, in worse rooms, with fewer blankets. But exhaustion, rain, and the night's terror had gathered in the small body like debt coming due. At 6 a.m, Lin Yu opened the door. Shen Yao was in the hallway. He had not been standing directly before the room. He sat in a chair near the far window, coat still on, a laptop closed on his knees and a cup of untouched coffee at his side. For one disorienting second, Lin Yu thought of a guard dog too proud to lie down at the threshold. His fever is rising. Lin Yu said. Shen Yao stood immediately. The doctor is downstairs. I said no, Shen family doctor. She isn't. Lin Yu held his gaze, then stepped back. The pediatrician examined Lin Che, while Lin Yu sat on the bed beside him, one hand resting near the child's ankle. Shen Yao remained by the door. He did not approach until Lin Che began coughing hard enough to panic. Then instinct defeated permission. He crossed the room, picked up the cup of warm water, and held it out. Lin Yu reached for it. But Lin Che, dizzy and half-conscious, turned toward the steadier shadow beside the bed. Shen Yao supported his back with one hand. Awkward from inexperience, yet careful with frightening precision. Slowly, he said. Lin Che drank 2 small sips, coughed again, and leaned forward. His forehead touched Shen Yao's wrist. The alpha froze. Lin Yu saw it. The entire room narrowed around that contact the child's feverish cheek. Shen Yao's still hand. The years between them, folding into a moment none of them had chosen. He wanted to take Lin Che back at once. He also saw that Shen Yao was holding himself as if afraid any movement might hurt the child. Then Lin Che murmured, hoarse and barely awake, Dad. The word did not belong to the room. The doctor pretended not to hear. The housekeeper lowered her eyes. Rain ticked softly against the window, gentle as a secret becoming unbearable. Lin Yu went completely still. Shen Yao looked at him over the child's bowed head. There was no triumph in his expression. No accusation. No satisfaction at being handed a truth. There was only a raw and stunned silence, as if a door had opened inside him onto something too bright to endure. Lin Yu reached out and took Lin Che back into his arms. This time Shen Yao let go immediately. He's feverish, Lin Yu said. His voice was calm, too calm. Shen Yao nodded once. I know. But neither of them believed fever had invented the word from nothing. By evening, Lin Che's temperature finally dropped. He slept curled against Lin Yu, one hand tucked under his cheek, the stuffed rabbit trapped beneath his chin. Lin Yu sat beside him, unable to rest. Across the room, on the table, the keycard Shen Yao had given him caught the lamplight. Freedom shaped like plastic. A cage with a lock on his side was still a cage if leaving meant being hunted. A knock came after sunset. This time it was Zhao Min. She did not enter. She handed Lin Yu a cream-colored envelope sealed with the Shen family crest, her expression grave enough to warn him before he opened it. Lin Yu broke the seal. The handwriting inside was elegant, old-fashioned, and mercilessly polite. Madame Shen invited Lin Che to the ancestral residence for a family dinner 3 nights later. The final line sat at the bottom like a blade, wrapped in silk. A child with Shen blood cannot live nameless. Lin Yu read it once. Then he looked past Zhao Min, down the corridor, where Shen Yao stood in shadow with the face of a man who had arrived too late to stop the past from entering the house. Lin Yu read the invitation twice and did not tear it apart. That restraint cost more than anger would have. The paper lay between his fingers, thick and cream-colored, carrying a faint scent of sandalwood that reminded him of old halls, lowered gazes, and rooms where decisions about Omega lives were made in voices too refined to sound cruel. Madame Shen had always written as if she were blessing people with orders. 6 years ago, her silence had done more damage than another person's shouting. Silence from a matriarch was permission for the household to close its gates. No, Lin Yu said. Shen Yao stood at the end of the corridor, half his face cut by shadow. He had clearly already heard the contents. Perhaps he had known before the envelope arrived. Perhaps every road into the Shen family still passed beneath eyes he could not fully blind. His expression did not change, but his hand at his side closed once, then opened. If she sent it here, she already knows enough. Then you should have stopped her before it reached me. I tried. Lin Yu looked at him, and the coldness in that look was sharper because it carried exhaustion beneath it. Trying is what powerful people say when they fail without losing anything. The words struck the corridor and remained there. Zhao Min quietly withdrew, leaving the two of them with a sleeping child behind one door and a family summons between them. Shen Yao had no defense that would not sound like the old version of himself. He could say he had hidden the property, sealed the clinic records, cut off 2 inquiries before dawn. He could say that Madame Shen's network had been built long before he was born. None of it mattered to a man who had already lost 6 years. Refusing may provoke them, Shen Yao said at last. Lin Yu laughed once, soundless and bitter. Accepting lets them see his face across a dinner table. Which one is your idea of protection? My idea of protection, Shen Yao said, each word carefully held, is not letting them drag you there through court documents and lineage petitions after I decline on your behalf. Lin Yu's eyes flickered. He knew enough about wealthy families to understand the shape of that threat. Not kidnapping. Not immediately. Something cleaner, legal notices. Medical demands. Questions about a single Omega father's financial stability. Generous offers wrapped around custody traps. Respectable violence wore good paper. He is not a Shen, Lin Yu said. Shen Yao looked toward the closed bedroom door. He is Lin Che. The answer was not what Lin Yu expected. It did not soothe him, but it made his anger falter by half a breath. Shen Yao saw that falter and did not step into it. 6 years ago, he would have pressed advantage wherever he found it. Now he only stood there in the corridor, as if aware that moving too fast would turn even help into another injury. If we go, Lin Yu said slowly, he does not leave my sight. No blood tests. No private conversations. No one touches him without his permission. If anyone calls him an heir before calling him a child, I take him and leave. Shen Yao answered immediately, agreed. And you don't get to decide when I'm being unreasonable. The corner of Shen Yao's mouth moved faintly. Not amusement, not softness, something more painful. I lost that right. Lin Yu hated that this, too, sounded like the beginning of something that could be believed if he were more foolish. He folded the invitation and placed it back inside the envelope. Behind him, Lin Che coughed once in his sleep. Both adults turned their heads toward the sound at the same time. And the small, simultaneous movement made the silence that followed almost unbearable. 3 nights later, the Shen ancestral residence opened its gates. It did not look like a home. It looked like a verdict preserved in architecture grey stone. Black eaves, water-dark courtyards, lanterns glowing behind carved wooden screens. The rain had stopped, but the air smelled of wet pine and old incense. Lin Yu stepped out of the car, holding Lin Che's hand. Refusing the umbrella, a servant offered, because accepting anything at that gate felt like giving away a piece of ground. Lin Che wore the simple navy coat Lin Yu had chosen instead of the tailored outfit delivered that morning. Shen Yao had not objected. He had only sent the expensive clothes away and ordered a smaller coat bought from an ordinary children's store. Tags still attached. That small obedience unsettled Lin Yu more than argument would have. Inside, the dinner hall had already gathered its spectators. Cousins, elders, branch relatives, legal advisors disguised as guests. Every face wore the thin politeness of people witnessing a family matter that might become a power shift by dessert. Madame Shen sat at the head of the table, white-haired, straight-backed, her dark silk shawl falling over one shoulder. Age had not softened her. It had merely polished her authority until it no longer needed volume. Her gaze passed over Lin Yu first. Not with hatred. Hatred would have been warmer. She looked at him as one looked at an unresolved complication, then turned to the child. Lin Che did not hide behind Lin Yu, though his fingers tightened. He looked back at the old woman with the quiet solemnity that made adults uncomfortable. The resemblance to Shen Yao was worse under the hall lights. It was not only face, but stillness, the instinct to reveal nothing while absorbing everything. Madame Shen's expression changed by the smallest degree. "So," she said, "this is the child." Lin Yu answered before anyone else could. "His name is Lin Che." A few relatives exchanged glances. Shen Yao stood beside Lin Yu rather than across from him, a placement deliberate enough to be noticed. In the old hierarchy, an omega connected to scandal would have stood behind, waiting to be addressed if necessary. Shen Yao's position cut through that expectation like a blade laid flat on the table. Madame Shen's gaze shifted to him. "You have brought him. At least. That is sensible. I brought Lin Yu and Lin Che because you asked for dinner." Shen Yao said, "Not inspection." His tone remained courteous. The warning beneath it did not. The meal began with porcelain bowls and nearly soundless servants. Lin Che sat between Lin Yu and an empty space Shen Yao had ordered left open rather than allowing any elder to separate them. No one commented directly on this. The Shen family preferred knives hidden beneath napkins. Questions came dressed as concern. Where had the child studied? Who treated his illness? Whether living in rented rooms had affected his constitution? Whether an omega alone could guide an alpha-blooded child through future differentiation? Lin Yu answered only what concerned Lin Che's daily life. For everything else, he allowed silence to stand. Madame Shen finally placed down her teacup. Children should not be raised in uncertainty. If his blood is Shen blood, he requires proper registration, education, and protection. Lin Yu, you have endured hardship. The family will not deny your effort. Effort, the word nearly made Lin Yu smile. It compressed hunger, fever, landlord threats, and nights spent counting a child's breaths into something suitable for polite acknowledgement. "What does the family intend not to deny me?" he asked. Madame Shen's eyes remained calm. "A residence, financial security, continued access. Naturally, No one is suggesting cruelty. There it was. Not a slap, not a shout. A room. Money. Visitation. The careful dismantling of fatherhood under the name of generosity. Lin Che looked up from his bowl, sensing the temperature around him change. Lin Yu placed one hand gently over the child's wrist, not to restrain him but to remind him he was not alone. Shen Yao spoke before Lin Yu could. Lin Che stays with Lin Yu. The hall fell still. Madame Shen's brows drew together. You are not thinking clearly. For the first time regarding them, Shen Yao said, I am. An elder coughed into his fist. Someone lowered chopsticks too sharply against porcelain. Shen Yao did not look at anyone except Madame Shen. 6 years ago, he had allowed this room, this hierarchy, this idea of family duty to decide what was credible and what could be discarded. Tonight, he stood within it and felt the old machinery turn toward the child. Shen Rukai entered late, apologizing with warmth so smooth it seemed genuine. Traffic near the East Bridge was miserable, he said, removing his gloves. He was in his early 50s, handsome in a careful, respectable way, with eyes that never rested where his smile did. I hope I haven't missed too much. Lin Yu's fingers went cold. Shen Rukai saw him and paused with just enough surprise to flatter the room. Lin Yu, after so many years, I wondered whether I would ever see you again. Shen Yao turned his head. Uncle. Only one word, but the air sharpened. Shen Rukai smiled as though indulging a younger man's tension. Don't look at me like that. We are family. If a child has appeared, surely all of us want clarity. The Shen name has already suffered once from misplaced trust. Lin Yu felt the old trap opening before the documents appeared. A servant came forward with a sealed folder. Shen Yao's expression darkened, but Shen Rukai lifted a hand gently. Almost sadly, I dislike unpleasantness at dinner. Truly. Yet if we speak of custody and recognition, we cannot pretend history never happened. 6 years ago, company documents were leaked. Funds moved through an account connected to Lin Yu. Photographs placed him near the rival negotiator's hotel. These were not rumors. The folder opened. Copies slid across the table with soft, expensive sounds. Lin Yu did not look at them at first. He knew their shape too well. They had once been held up as proof that his love, his loyalty, his very body had been a scheme. What no one had shown that night was the message threatening the child inside him. The blocked calls, the way the gate guard had looked through him as rainwater ran down his face. Madame Shen looked at the documents, then at Lin Che. Her expression tightened, not with malice but calculation. This is why certainty matters. Lin Yu lifted his eyes. If those documents were real, why was I never charged? No one expected the question. For 6 years, he had existed in their memory as someone who disappeared under accusation, and disappearance had conveniently replaced conviction. Shen Rukai's smile softened. Your condition, then, was fragile. Yao chose not to pursue it. My condition. Lin Yu repeated quietly. You knew. The question was not loud, but it moved through the hall with frightening precision. Shen Rukai's gaze paused. Only for a second, but Shen Yao saw it. Madame Shen saw Shen Yao see it. Lin Yu pushed the copies back with 2 fingers. Evidence that cannot survive court can still destroy an omega if the right family repeats it often enough. Shen Yao stood. The chair behind him scraped once against the floor. It was not loud, yet several people flinched. His face had lost all public elegance. What remained was controlled fury and something beneath it that looked almost like shame. That matter, he said, will be reopened. Shen Rukai's expression cooled for the first time. Yao. Do not let sentiment rewrite betrayal. No. Shen Yao looked at the documents. Then at Lin Yu. Betrayal was rewritten as evidence. Lin Yu did not soften. If anything, pain made him colder. Shen Yao defending him in this room should have meant something. Perhaps it would have. In another life. Before winter clinics and unpaid bills and a child coughing into second-hand blankets. Now it only proved that truth arriving late still expected to be welcomed. Madame Shen's voice cut through them. Enough. The old matter can be investigated. But the child cannot remain nameless while adults argue. Shen Yao. You know what will happen if branch families learn he has no formal protection. Lin Yu turned toward her. He survived because he was not yours. The hall went silent enough for candle flames to be heard trembling. Madame Shen's face changed. For the first time that evening, something human crossed it anger. Yes, but also the offended pain of someone forced to see that her family's protection had become indistinguishable from threat. Lin Che looked up at Lin Yu, then at Shen Yao, his small face pale. He had not understood every word, but he understood enough people wanted to rename him. Move him, divide him from the only person who had never left. Shen Yao lowered his voice. Lin Yu, take Cheche to the side room. I'll end this. No. Lin Yu said, you don't end things for me anymore. He stood, taking Lin Che's hand. Shen Yao did not stop him. That restraint cost him visibly. Every line of his body wanted to move, to command, to shield. But he remained still as Lin Yu led the child through the side door into the adjoining restroom, away from the staring elders, and the documents spread like poison across the table. The side room smelled of sandalwood and rain-damp wood. Lin Yu closed the door and crouched before Lin Che, smoothing the child's hair with hands that had begun to shake. Did I do something bad? Lin Che whispered. No. Lin Yu's voice broke before he could repair it. He pulled the child close, pressing his face against the soft hair at his temple. No. Baby. Never. A sound came from the hallway. Not footsteps exactly. A small click. Then silence. Lin Yu looked toward the door. Stay behind me, he said. But when he turned fully, the secondary door leading to the inner corridor stood open by a narrow black gap. Cold air slid in from the ancestral garden. Lin Yu's blood went suddenly empty. Chech. The hand in his was gone. For one suspended second. The room. The family. The entire 6 years of flight and fear narrowed into the impossible absence beside him. Then Lin Yu screamed his son's name. Lin Yu's scream tore through the ancestral residence before anyone understood what had been broken. The dinner hall emptied in confusion. Chairs struck floorboards. Elders rose with offended alarm. Servants ran without knowing where to go. Shen Yao reached the side room first and found Lin Yu standing beside the open inner door. His hand still curved as if a child's fingers should have been there. That emptiness changed his face more violently than tears could have. He looked neither frantic nor weak. He looked as if the world had taken the one thing he had built his bones around. Lin She. Shen Yao said. Lin Yu turned on him. You said he would be safe. The sentence had no volume. Yet Shen Yao felt it land in the center of his chest. He moved past Lin Yu, checked the secondary corridor. The garden stones wet with old rain. The narrow service gate beyond the bamboo screen. The lock had been opened from inside. No forced entry. No noise. Whoever had taken the child had known the residence well enough to move through its hidden arteries. Shen Yao's voice cut through the shouting behind them. Seal every exit. No one leaves the property. Shen Rukai arrived with the others. his brows drawn together in a convincing display of concern. A child went missing under our own roof, Yao. This is why emotions cannot replace proper protection. Before Shen Yao could answer, Lin Yu crossed the room. No one expected an Omega to strike an elder of the Shen family. Perhaps that was why no one stopped him. His palm cracked across Shen Rukai's face with a sound sharp enough to silence the corridor. The older man's head turned slightly. A red mark rose beneath his cheekbone. Vivid against his composure, Lin Yu's hand shook at his side. If anything happens to my son, I will bury every secret you think age can protect. For the first time, Shen Rukai's eyes showed something unpolished. Not fear. Calculation interrupted. Shen Yao stepped between them, not to defend his uncle, but to stop the room from swallowing Lin Yu whole. He looked at Shen Rukai and saw the pause, the hidden pleasure beneath restrained outrage, the absence of real surprise. 6 years ago, he had ignored that same wrongness because the evidence had given him permission to be proud. Tonight, pride had no place left to stand. Search the East Garden. Shen Yao ordered. Check the service road cameras. Not the family system. Someone may have cut the internal feed. Madame Shen gripped the armrest of her chair. Her face had gone pale beneath its discipline. Who would dare take a child from this house? Lin Yu laughed. Once, and terribly. You still think this house makes children safe? No one answered him. They found the first trace near the old servant gate, Lin Che's stuffed rabbit lying beneath the hedge. One ear muddied. One glass eye cracked. Lin Yu knelt as if his knees had been cut. He picked it up with both hands and held it against his chest. Shen Yao stood above him. Unable to look away from the small, ruined thing, Lin Che had dropped it, or thrown it. Either way, the child had tried to leave a sign. Shen Yao's phone vibrated. Zhao Min's voice came through tight and fast. A black van had exited through the Eastern Maintenance Road 11 minutes earlier. The license plate belonged to a vehicle scrapped 3 years ago. A camera 2 blocks away caught a partial image of the driver. The man had worked security for one of Shen Rukai's subsidiary warehouses. Shen Yao did not look at Lin Yu when he said, "We have a direction." Lin Yu stood, still holding the rabbit. "I'm coming." No. The word left Shen Yao too quickly. Lin Yu's eyes turned on him, and he corrected himself before the old wound widened further. "You can come," Shen Yao said, voice roughened by the effort of changing instinct into respect. "But you stay behind me if there's danger." Lin Yu's answer was immediate. "I stayed behind you once. That was how I lost everything." The sentence struck harder because there was no time to bleed from it. Shen Yao opened the car door himself. Lin Yu got in beside him, the stuffed rabbit in his lap like evidence of a crime no court could hold. The vehicle tore out of the residence, followed by 2 security cars without family insignia. Behind them, the Shen house shrank into a dark mass of stone and lanterns, beautiful and useless. For several minutes, only the engine spoke. Then Lin Yu said, "He has asthma when he panics. If they cover his mouth, he'll fight. If they restrain him too tightly, he'll stop breathing properly. He hides pain from strangers. If he goes quiet, don't mistake it for calm." Shen Yao absorbed every word. "I understand." "No," Lin Yu said. His fingers tightened around the rabbit until its torn ear bent. You don't understand what it means to watch a child breathe badly and count whether you have enough money for one more clinic visit. You don't understand teaching him 3 different names before he turned 5 because your family's people asked too many questions. You don't understand sleeping with a chair under the door because someone sent a photograph of my hospital room and wrote that blood like his should return to its origin." Shen Yao went still. When he asked, Lin Yu looked through the windshield at the wet road, face hollowed by passing lights. Before he was born, the night opened around them. Shen Yao remembered a different version of those months Lin Yu accused. Lin Yu, unreachable. Lin Yu gone. He had never imagined a pregnancy inside that silence. He had never asked what silence was protecting. They threatened you, he said. They threatened him. Lin Yu's voice thinned but did not break. You had already believed I sold you out. Your people gave me your answer at the gate. I had nowhere left to stand except between them and the child. I never sent anyone to the gate. Lin Yu finally looked at him. Then someone spoke very well in your name. The words entered Shen Yao with a cold precision. In the back of his mind, old details reassembled Shen Rukai advising distance. Madame Shen insisting scandal must be sealed before it spread. A report that Lin Yu had accepted money and vanished. Every piece had once fit the shape of betrayal because Shen Yao had wanted them to. Now the same pieces formed a cage. What did they show you? He asked. Lin Yu closed his eyes briefly. A medical report. Your pheromone match with another omega. A pregnancy risk assessment. A handwritten note saying I should leave with dignity before I became unnecessary. Shen Yao's breathing changed. There was no other omega. I know that now. Lin Yu said, back then, I was 22, feverish, pregnant, and being told the father of my child had already chosen the next person allowed to stand beside him. The car sped beneath an overpass, and for a moment the world flashed black. In that darkness, Shen Yao felt something inside him collapse without sound. He had thought regret would feel like pain. It felt more like arriving too late to a burned house and finding that the ashes had learned to live without him. Zhao Min sent an address, an abandoned warehouse near the river, once owned by a logistics company linked to Shen Rukai. Shen Yao forwarded the location to a private rescue team and ordered them to wait for his signal, not storm the site. If Lin Che was inside, noise could kill faster than blades. At the warehouse, the river wind smelled of rust and winter algae. Broken windows reflected strips of moonlight. Shen Yao and Lin Yu entered through a side passage with 2 security men behind them. Every step echoed too loudly. Lin Yu had never looked smaller than he did in that cavernous dark. Yet Shen Yao understood no force could have made him remain outside. A child coughed somewhere beyond the storage racks. Lin Yu surged forward. Shen Yao caught his wrist. Not tightly, just enough to stop him from running blind. Lin Yu turned. Fury and terror raw in his eyes. Shen Yao lifted one finger to his lips and pointed toward the inner office, where light leaked beneath a door. Inside, a man's voice muttered into a phone. The boy is awake. No. He keeps asking for his papa. We haven't hurt him. Lin Yu's face twisted, but no sound came out. Another voice, colder, came through the phone speaker faintly. Shenrukai. Good. Frightened children are useful only if undamaged. The old woman will agree to formal custody once the Omega is shown incapable of protection. Yao will rage. But rage can be managed. Shen Yao took out his own phone and began recording. The man inside continued. Nervous. What about Lin Yu? A pause. Then Shen Rukai's voice. Patient as tea being poured. He should have disappeared 6 years ago. I gave him every chance. The room seemed to tilt beneath Lin Yu. A memory returned so violently he almost stopped breathing himself in a cheap clinic corridor. One hand over his belly. Bargaining with a voice on an unknown number. I can leave him. But don't touch my child. He had said it over and over until dignity became meaningless beside fear. On the other end, a man had smiled through silence. Shen Yao heard the words because Lin Yu whispered them now without realizing. I can leave him. Lin Yu said, barely audible. But don't touch my child. Shen Yao looked at him. There are sentences one cannot apologize to. They stand beyond apology, requiring a life to answer them. The rescue team moved on Shen Yao's signal. The door burst inward. The guard reached for a weapon and was disarmed before he could lift it. Lin Che sat on a chair in the corner, wrists loosely bound with cloth, face streaked with tears he had tried not to shed. The moment he saw Lin Yu, his composure broke. Papa. Lin Yu crossed the room faster than thought. He dropped to his knees, tore at the cloth, and gathered the child into his arms. Lin Che coughed hard against his shoulder. Little body shaking, Lin Yu pressed the inhaler to his mouth with practiced hands, whispering praise. Apologies. Nonsense. Everything he had not allowed himself to say while searching. Shen Yao stood at the doorway, watching them breathe together. Then the second shot came from above. It was not loud at first. A suppressed crack from the mezzanine. A glint near the broken railing. Shen Yao saw the angle before anyone else moved. The shooter was not aiming at him. He was aiming at the child in Lin Yu's arms. Shen Yao crossed the distance without calculation. His body hit Lin Yu's shoulder and drove both Omega and child behind a stack of crates. Pain tore through his side. Hot and immediate. Another shot splintered wood where Lin Che's head had been. Security returned fire. Someone shouted. Glass shattered. The warehouse erupted into motion. Lin Yu, trapped beneath Shen Yao's weight for one stunned second, felt warmth spreading across his hand. Blood. Not his. Not Lin Che's. Shen Yao had one arm braced around them. His body curved to cover the child's smaller one. His face was close enough that Lin Yu saw the shock in his eyes. Not from pain, but from the relief of having arrived in time for once. Cheshire. Shen Yao whispered, voice unsteady. Are you hurt? Lin Che shook his head, crying silently now. Lin Yu stared at Shen Yao's blood on his palm. For 6 years, the man before him had existed in memory as the wound. Now that same man was bleeding over concrete because he had placed himself between death and their son. Shen Yao, Lin Yu said. It was the first time he had spoken his name without distance. Shen Yao tried to answer, but his strength failed before sound did. His hand slipped from the crate, leaving a dark streak behind. As the rescue team closed around them and sirens began to wail beyond the river road, Shen Yao collapsed with Lin Che's small hand still caught in his sleeve. The hospital corridor smelled of disinfectant, rainwater, and blood that no amount of mopping could fully erase. Lin Yu sat outside the operating room with Lin Che asleep against his lap. The child had cried until no sound remained, then fallen into a feverish doze with one hand still closed around a torn button from Shen Yao's coat. A nurse had tried to take it away while checking his pulse. Lin Che had woken instantly, eyes wide, and Lin Yu had shaken his head before anyone could insist. Some objects were not medicine, yet the body needed them to keep breathing. Above the operating room doors, the red light did not change. Shen Yao's blood had dried under Lin Yu's fingernails. He had washed twice. It remained in the half-moons of his hands, dark where the skin creased. Every time he looked down, he saw again the warehouse floor, the splintering crate, Shen Yao's body curving around them as if 6 years of absence could be paid for in one instinctive movement. Lin Yu knew that was not how debt worked. A wound could not purchase forgiveness. Zhao Min stood near the window with 2 security officers, speaking into her phone in a voice so quiet it became part of the rain. Madame Shen had arrived 20 minutes earlier and been stopped at the end of the corridor by Shen Yao's private guards. For the first time in decades, the matriarch of the Shen family found a door closed to her inside a hospital. Her donations had helped build. Lin Che stirred. "Papa." Lin Yu bent at once. "I'm here." "Is he dead?" The question came out small and flat. Children did not always ask the merciful version of things. Lin Yu covered the child's cold hand with his own and hated every adult who had brought him into rooms where such questions became necessary. "No," he said. "The doctors are helping him." "Because of me." Lin Yu turned Lin Che gently until their eyes met. "No. Listen carefully. None of this happened because of you. Adults made cruel choices. He made one brave choice. Those are not the same." Lin Che looked at him for a long time, then pressed his forehead against Lin Yu's chest. He asked if I was hurt. Lin Yu closed his eyes. The corridor light trembled red through his lashes. "I heard." Near dawn, the surgeon came out. The bullet had passed through Shen Yao's side, damaging muscle and grazing an artery, closely enough that the surgeon's expression remained grave, even after saying stable. Blood loss. Risk of infection. Heavy sedation. Observation. For the next 48 hours. Lin Yu listened with unnatural calm. He had become skilled at hearing frightening medical words without falling apart. Poverty trained people for emergencies by giving them too many rehearsals. When the surgeon finished, Zhao Min approached with a sealed tablet and a folder. "Mr. Lin," she said. The address made several people turn their heads. Zhao Min did not correct herself. She held out the folder with both hands, as if delivering something more fragile than paper. President Shen instructed that if anything happened tonight, this should be given to you first. Lin Yu did not take it. "I don't want compensation." "It isn't compensation." In Zhao Min's face, he saw no pity, only exhaustion and a professional respect earned by witnessing too much and speaking too little. Lin Yu opened the folder with one hand, the other still resting over Lin Che's back. Inside were legal documents signed before the warehouse operation, an acknowledgement that Lin Yu was Lin Che's sole legal guardian, a withdrawal of any immediate custody claim by Shen Yao or Shen Holdings, a protective trust controlled entirely by Lin Yu, and instructions to prosecute anyone who attempted to coerce a lineage test, custody transfer, or family registration without Lin Yu's consent. The final page bore Shen Yao's signature, not large, not dramatic, just black ink pressed hard enough to leave a faint groove in the paper. "He signed these before we found Cheche," Lin Yu asked. "Before we entered the warehouse," Zhao Min said. "He said you should have proof that he was not using rescue as leverage." The sentence had no right to hurt, yet it did. Lin Yu had prepared anger for every possible trap. He had not prepared for a door being opened from the other side with no hand reaching through to drag him in. Zhao Min placed the tablet on top of the folder. "There is more." The recordings from the warehouse had been copied to 3 secure locations. Financial trails connected Shen Rukai's assistants to the men who abducted Lin Che. Old security logs showed Lin Yu had come to the Shen residence gate 6 years earlier on the night Shen Yao supposedly refused to see him. The visitor entry had been deleted from the active record, but not from the backup. A gate guard's deposition named Shen Rukai's aide as the person who ordered Lin Yu turned away. Then came the fabricated medical report. Lin Yu had thought memory had exhausted its ability to injure him. Seeing the document again proved otherwise. The same formatting. The same false compatibility data. The same invented Omega name. Beside it sat a forensic analysis, exposing the forged seal. The altered genetic codes. The timestamp created after Lin Yu had already disappeared. There had been no other Omega. There had only been a frightened young man outside a locked gate, a child not yet born, and a powerful man too proud to question evidence that allowed him to feel betrayed instead of afraid. Madame Shen approached after the guards received permission from Zhao Min, not from the family office. The old woman understood the change. Her face looked older than it had at dinner, stripped of ceremonial distance. The child should rest in a private room. She said, "My son will stay where I can see the operating ward." "Lin Yu, I did not come to fight you." "No," Lin Yu said. "You came because consequences finally reached your door." The corridor stilled. Madame Shen absorbed the words with a discipline that had probably outlived love, grief, and most of her own tenderness. "I was told you betrayed him. You were powerful enough to ask whether that was true." A pause. "Yes," Madame Shen said. It was not enough. It was also more than Lin Yu had expected from her. The admission stood there between them. Small and useless against 6 years. But real, in a way the Shen family rarely allowed things to be real. The old woman looked at Lin Che. "He is very like Yao. He is like himself." Madame Shen lowered her eyes. "Then I hope he remains so." By afternoon, Shen Rukai's public warmth had begun to rot. Police entered one of his subsidiary offices. 2 finance directors resigned before questioning. Madame Shen withdrew protection from his household with a single call, so quiet it frightened everyone who heard about it afterward. The Shen family did not collapse. Old institutions rarely did. But something inside its machinery cracked, and for once the sound traveled outward. Shen Yao woke near midnight. Lin Yu had not intended to be in the room. He had followed Lin Che, who refused to sleep unless he saw that the man from the warehouse was still breathing. The nurse allowed 5 minutes. Lin Che stood beside the bed in clean pajamas, small and pale under the hospital lights, while Shen Yao lay against white pillows, with tubes at his hand and bandages beneath the loose gown. When Shen Yao opened his eyes, he did not look at the machines. He looked at the child. "Are you hurt?" he rasped. Lin Che shook his head. His fingers twisted in the hem of his pajama top. Papa said, "You're not dead." A faint breath left Shen Yao. It might have been the shadow of laughter if laughter had not hurt too much. "Your papa is usually right." Lin Che considered him. "You bled a lot." "Yes." "Will it hurt long?" Shen Yao's gaze moved past the child to Lin Yu. For 1 second. The question seemed to belong to all 3 of them. "I think so," he said. Lin Che nodded gravely, then placed the torn coat button on the bedside table. "You dropped this." Shen Yao looked at the button. His throat moved. "Thank you." The nurse took Lin Che out soon after, bribing him gently with warm milk. Lin Yu remained because leaving immediately would have looked like fear, and he was tired of granting fear so much authority. The room settled into a quiet, broken only by monitors and rain against the narrow window. Shen Yao spoke first. "The documents. I saw them. You can leave whenever you want. No one from the Shen family will stop you." Lin Yu watched him carefully. "Including you. Including me." It should have been easy to accept. Instead, Lin Yu felt anger rise again, familiar and protective. "You don't get to become generous after taking away the years when I needed you most." "I know." "Do you?" His voice stayed low because Lin Che was outside. "You believed them. You looked at what they put in front of you and decided the worst version of me was easier to accept than asking me why." Shen Yao closed his eyes. Not to avoid him, but because the words deserved to land without interruption. "Yes." "That yes doesn't fix anything." "No." Lin Yu hated the absence of defense. He had wanted Shen Yao to excuse himself so anger could remain simple. But the man on the bed only lay there, pale and diminished by blood loss, answering like someone who had finally understood that truth was not a negotiation. "I can't give you back 6 years." Shen Yao said, "I can't ask you to return to where I failed you. I won't ask Cheche to carry my regret as his duty." Lin Yu's fingers curled at his side. Shen Yao turned his head toward him with visible effort. This time, I will stand where you can leave me. The room became unbearably quiet. Lin Yu had survived hunger, humiliation, threats, and the slow erosion of being disbelieved. He had not prepared himself for restraint from the person whose lack of restraint had once destroyed him. For a moment, he almost wished Shen Yao had begged. Begging could be refused. This was worse. This left the choice entirely in Lin Yu's hands. He did not answer. Shen Yao did not ask again. 2 days later, while Shen Yao remained under observation and Lin Che slept in the visitor room, the pediatrician came to find Lin Yu near the vending machines. Doctor, he was a woman in her 40s with tired eyes and no interest in the Shen family's drama beyond what endangered her patient. I have a sister in Nanchang, she said. She runs a small language school. They need an English translator and part-time administrator. The apartment upstairs is empty. The air is better for children with breathing problems. Lin Yu looked at the business card in her hand. It's far. Doctor, he added, far enough that people there won't know what the Shen name means unless you tell them. Lin Yu took the card. Through the corridor window, morning spread pale over the city. Behind him, in separate rooms, one child slept after terror, and one alpha breathed through pain he had chosen. Ahead, printed on a small white card, was a road out. Lin Yu stood there until the vending machine lights flickered off and on again, holding the first offer of freedom that did not feel like flight, and found he no longer knew which direction hurt less. For 3 days, the business card remained in Lin Yu's coat pocket like a folded piece of weather. He carried it through hospital corridors, pharmacy counters, discharge paperwork, and Lin Che's restless sleep. Sometimes his fingers found it by accident and paused there, touching the printed address of a city far enough to become a beginning. Nanchang had clean air, a language school, an empty apartment above a quiet street. It had no ancestral halls, no hidden cameras, no elderly relatives who could turn blood into a summons. It also had no Shen Yao waiting outside the pediatric ward with a cup of warm water he never dared hand over unless Lin Yu looked at him first. That was the cruelty of choices after survival. When escape was the only road, the body moved before the heart could speak. Now that a door had opened without anyone chasing him through it, Lin Yu found himself standing still, listening to Shen Yao's machines behind one door and Lin Che's breathing beside him. Freedom had arrived late, and late things always asked to be judged against what had already been lost. Shen Yao did not ask about the card. He knew, yet when Lin Yu came to the room to collect Lin Che's forgotten scarf, Shen Yao only placed the folded wool on the bedside table and said, "The weather in Nanchang is warmer." Lin Yu's hand stopped. "You checked." "I checked whether the school is real, whether the apartment is safe, and whether the doctor's sister has debts that could be used against her." Shen Yao's face was still colorless from blood loss, but his voice remained steady. "She is real. The apartment is old but clean. The nearest children's clinic is 12 minutes away on foot. You investigated my escape route. I secured it." The old anger rose, then faltered. Shen Yao had not bought the building, threatened the school, or placed men at the station. He had merely made sure the door Lin Yu might choose did not open into another trap. "You could make it very hard for me to leave." Lin Yu said, "Yes." And Shen Yao turned his gaze toward the rain on the window. "And then I would become the reason you had to run again." Lin Yu picked up the scarf. He wanted to say something cruel, something easy, something that would return them to familiar ground. But Lin Che had cried less the night before after Shen Yao read him half a page from a children's book in a voice so stiff the nurse had bitten back a smile. On the 5th day, Shen Yao left the hospital against medical advice to attend the Shen family council. He did not wear the ceremonial black suit prepared by the household. He wore a plain, dark coat, loose enough not to pull at the bandage beneath his shirt. Zhao Min walked at his left with a tablet. Madame Shen sat at the head of the table, older than before. Her hands folded over sandalwood beads she had once used to measure patience while other people's lives were arranged around her. Shen Rukai sat 3 chairs down, cheek no longer marked by Lin Yu's slap. He looked almost disappointed when Shen Yao entered. "You should be resting," he said. "Injured men make emotional decisions." "Then you should hope I remain emotional." Shen Yao replied. "A rational decision would be less merciful." The first recording played without preamble. Shen Rukai's voice filled the hall, patient and elegant from the warehouse phone speaker. "Frightened children are useful only if undamaged." The elders did not gasp. People like them rarely gave fear such unpolished expression, but their stillness changed. Their eyes moved toward him, away, then back again, each person calculating how close they had stood to a man whose failure might become contagious. The next files came, one after another: money trails, forged medical documents, the erased gate entry from 6 years ago. By the time Zhao Min played the recovered audio from an old burner phone, even Madame Shen closed her eyes. Lin Yu's younger voice came through, thin with exhaustion and terror. "I can leave him, but don't touch my child." The recording was short. It did not need to be longer. Shen Rukai's smile finally faded. "You would destroy a branch of your own family for an Omega who lied to you for 6 years. Shen Yao looked at him with a quiet that frightened the room more than rage. "No. I am destroying the part of this family that taught me an Omega's silence was less credible than a forged document." He placed a signed resolution on the table. Removal of Shen Rukai from all board-linked trusts. Freezing of discretionary family funds under his control. Full cooperation with criminal investigation. Protection orders for Lin Yu and Lin Che, independent of Shen family guardianship. The clauses were precise, clean, and merciless. This was the language Shen Yao had inherited and mastered. For once, he used it to cut the machine that had made him. The child, one elder began carefully, must still be considered in succession matters. "No," Shen Yao said. The elder stiffened. "He is your blood. He is 6. No one spoke. He likes steamed egg when he's recovering from fever. Shen Yao continued. He counts stairs when he is nervous. He hides medicine under his pillow because he thinks illness costs too much. He asks before touching anything expensive. If any of you think that child exists first as blood, name, or succession, you will never be allowed near him." Madame Shen's fingers tightened over the beads. The council ended before noon. Shen Rukai was taken away through the side entrance. Dignity intact only because men of his class always had time to arrange their expressions before disgrace. He passed Lin Yu in the outer corridor. Lin Yu had not attended the meeting. He had waited there because the final documents concerned his son, and he no longer allowed powerful rooms to speak about Lin Che without his shadow at the door. Shen Rukai paused. "You were always better at surviving than I expected." Lin Yu looked at him. 6 years ago, that voice had lived in nightmares and anonymous calls. Now it belonged to a man surrounded by police, stripped of the family warmth that had made him untouchable. Lin Yu felt no triumph, only the tired clarity of someone who had outlived a storm and did not wish to praise the rain for stopping. "You mistook fear for weakness," he said. Shen Rukai gave a faint smile. "And you mistook Shen Yao for salvation." "No," Lin Yu said. "I mistook him for someone who would ask." When Shen Yao came out, his face was pale and damp with cold sweat. Lin Yu noticed before anyone else. He stepped forward without thinking, then stopped halfway. hand suspended in the space between them. Shen Yao saw the movement and did not take advantage of it. He only stood there, breathing carefully. "Go back to the hospital," Lin Yu said. "Yes." The obedience was so immediate that Lin Yu almost frowned. Shen Yao lowered his eyes to the folder in Lin Yu's arms. "Everything is in there. No family claim. No hidden clause. Zhao Min will arrange an outside lawyer to review it. You don't need to keep proving you're not trapping me." "I know." A faint pause. "But you may need time to believe it." Lin Yu had no answer. That evening, he packed again. Not in panic this time. He folded Lin Che's clothes slowly, setting aside the sweater with short sleeves. The clinic receipts he no longer needed to keep as proof of hardship. The stuffed rabbit mended by a nurse with clumsy grey thread. Lin Che sat on the bed and watched the suitcase with a worried face. "Are we going to Nancheng?" he asked. "We might." "Will he come?" Lin Yu looked at his son. There were answers a child deserved, and answers a parent was not ready to give. He sat beside Lin Che and smoothed the hair from his forehead. "No," he said, "not unless we invite him." Lin Che thought about this. Is Yi a bad person? Lin Yu looked toward the window. Rain had started again, light and silver beneath the street lamps. Once, he would have said yes because it was safer for a child's world to be simple. But Lin Che had already seen enough complexity to be harmed by lies disguised as protection. He did something very wrong, Lin Yu said, and then he did something brave. People are sometimes both. Can I still see him? The question was careful, too careful. Lin Yu felt the old fear rise at once, the Shen name. Custody. Attachment. Loss. Then he saw Lin Che's small hands folded tightly in his lap, waiting to see whether love was another thing adults might ration. Lin Yu had taught his son to survive. He had not meant to teach him that wanting was dangerous. "Yes," he said. "If you want to," slowly. Lin Che nodded, relief softening his whole face. The next morning, Lin Yu did not board the train to Nancheng. He rented a small apartment 3 districts away from Shen Holdings, above a bakery whose ovens warmed the staircase before dawn. The windows were old, but they opened to trees. The landlord did not ask questions once, Zhao Min, pretending not to act on Shen Yao's instruction, helped arrange an ordinary lease through an ordinary agency. Lin Yu saw through it. He signed anyway because ordinary safety was a gift he could accept if no chain came attached. Shen Yao arrived at the school gate every Friday. The first week, he stood across the street. So distant, Lin Che had to wave both arms for him to notice. The second week, he brought steamed buns, then threw half away after Lin Yu pointed out Lin Che disliked the filling. The third week, he learned to ask, "May I walk with you?" instead of assuming his presence belonged beside them. Sometimes Lin Yu said yes. Sometimes he said no. Shen Yao accepted both answers with the same quiet nod. Months passed that way. Not healing exactly, but changing the shape of pain. One winter afternoon, rain caught them outside the bakery. Lin Che had run ahead under the awning, laughing because his new boots splashed water higher than expected. Shen Yao opened an umbrella and held it out to Lin Yu without stepping closer. Lin Yu looked at the umbrella, then at the man holding it. Shen Yao's hair was damp. He had learned not to crowd doorways, not to speak for Lin Yu when teachers asked questions, not to flinch when Lin Che called him Dad on some days and Uncle Shen on others. He had learned that waiting was not passive when one was waiting with his whole life held carefully back. Lin Yu took the umbrella. For a heartbeat, Shen Yao's hand began to withdraw. Lin Yu watched it, then shifted the umbrella half an inch to the side, leaving enough space beneath it for another shoulder. It was not forgiveness. Not yet. Perhaps not in the clean way stories preferred. It was only an opening, narrow and rainlit, offered by a man who had every reason to keep the whole sky to himself. Shen Yao stepped under it. Neither of them spoke. Across the pavement, Lin Che called impatiently for them to hurry, his voice bright and unafraid. Lin Yu started walking first. Shen Yao matched his pace, careful not to move too close, careful not to fall behind. Above them, the rain continued. No longer a locked gate, no longer a night of exile. Only weather passing through the city while three shadows moved together beneath one umbrella, slowly learning the shape of home.